Somerville Commission for Women, so I came last year, and it's nice to do something part of the community that says very clearly and loudly and out there that it's not okay to have violence against women. But it also feels like a fun time too. It feels like a time to come together with people that I work with throughout the year to celebrate too, that we survive when it happens.
And I'm here because it's fun to be with, or it's empowering to be with men and women who are coming out against violence against women. It's a pretty mixed crowd, so I feel strongly about it.
What do you think is the most pressing problem in Somerville with violence?
Domestic violence, and there's gay and lesbian bashing, hate crimes.
Yeah, I would say domestic violence because it's the ones you don't hear about, and it's I think the ones that don't make the news and don't make and people again feel like a lot of women think that they're safer, that they're not at risk when they're in their house or they're not. You don't hear about it, so it's not as glamorous, it's not as flashy. And I guess also gay bashing in the city. It doesn't. I think that there's been moves to be more aware of that, and that feels really nice in the city. That at the time that I've watched that change, people are much more aware of homophobia. And I feel safer than I used to, which is nice.
We live in a violent society. We accept, encourage, and glorify the abuse that happens in the name of prestige, power, domination, and control. Our society is based on hierarchy, the subjugation of the weak by the strong, and using force as a means of control and a way to solve problems that happen on a global and a personal level. We teach our sons to be physically fit and master the world around them by whatever means possible. Success is measured by who has the most power, who can control others. We teach our daughters that their success depends on seeking out and maintaining a relationship, regardless of the cost to her self-esteem and physical well-being. Our preoccupation with violence is conspicuous in the games and toys we choose for our sons to play, by the advertisements and songs that justify and encourage a man's abuse of the women around him. Many forms of abuse exist in our society and go unchallenged, for they are so ingrained in who we are, what we believe, and how we function as a nation. Violence against women has reached epidemic proportions in this nation. A woman is raped every 3 minutes. 1 out of 5 women have an incest history. Domestic violence is the #1 reason women are seen in hospital emergency rooms. A woman is beaten every 18 seconds. A woman is killed every 22 days by her husband and boyfriend in Massachusetts alone. The Somerville Police Department's domestic violence unit received over 1,000 phone calls in 1990.
A little over a year ago, 5 kids got together and shared their secret. Each of them had been sexually abused. Now, nobody likes to talk about sexual assault, but we have to, especially as kids, because it happens to so many of us. Would you believe 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 7 boys is sexually assaulted by the age of 14? Think about it. Sexual assault is any unwanted or forced sexual contact. It includes rape, incest, and verbal or physical harassment. We're the Acting Out Teen Theater, and we're here to tell their story, because their story can happen to any one of us.
We're 5 out of 5 trying to survive. Those by us, we have something to hide. It's not our shame, cause you're to blame.
Hey boys and girls, women and men,
It's time to make sure it never happens again.
they're telling me it's 1 in 4.
But I look around and see many more.
All of these folks walking around in shame.
Some saw and you thinking they're to blame.
There are folks walking around.
Who were telling us lies.
But we're here to say we got nothing to hide.
Won't take the blame no more. Not our fault. Won't take the blame no more.
I really wanted to be Johnny's girl, but he said I had to go all the way. One night he got really ugly. I never knew he would hurt me.
We were strangers at first and thought we were weird. We had 5 secrets.
And nobody dared to tell the story we knew was true. So we just sat there sad and blue. We were scared that we'd done something wrong. No one would be the first to sing this song. Not our fault. Won't take the blame no more. Not our fault. Won't take the blame no more.
I think the only real consensus there is among men who consider themselves people who work with men or part of a men's movement is that there's a problem. I think that's sort of the baseline, is that 20 years ago, that wasn't a consensus. You know, men are supposed to be the top dogs. You know, we're supposed to kind of have it. And the fact that we don't necessarily have it in certain ways, be it that our lives are lousy or that we treat other people lousily, you know, on one end or the other, there's something wrong with our lives, is pretty much common ground for people in the men's movement. Beyond that, it really goes different ways. We don't have anybody right here who sort of speaks to the Robert Bly movement, but there's a kind of a whole lot of men that have decided that following his thing, I think we're going to have a little shot about him later, but who sort of are moving in the direction of reclaiming old images of how men can be and using those as sort of archetypes or prototypes for male behavior in the present, you know, has been a very powerful thing. And then some of the work that Jackson is trying to do, you know, which is very different than that, you know, going straight after institutions that perpetuate some of these systems, you know, is they don't agree, you know. and some of the personal work that I do is trying to actually find the places where we do overlap and to work with those joints, you know, and try and massage them so they get smoother and better, and also I think we do need to learn to talk to each other better across the movement so that we don't attack and infight with each other, you know, and tear ourselves down in the process, but we learn to figure out how to build our movement stronger by getting smarter, and we have to learn to educate each other, you know, a lot. So
it seems like that kind of collaboration is not really something men are brought up to do. I mean, we were brought up to compete. And do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly not something that men are brought up to do, although if you look at institutions, you see all men. I mean, you often hear women saying, why do you need a men's movement? Why do you need a place for men to get together? Men are together everywhere, in boardrooms, in locker rooms, in machinists' halls, you know, men are together everywhere. But there's a difference between being self-conscious about being men and knowing that you're men talking about men's issues than just being together as men, because as I'm sure these gentlemen are in agreement with me.
Senator.
As my distinguished colleagues would probably attest, lots of male relationships are fairly superficial, and unfortunately, I have friends myself for years and years, and the one thing we share is talking about sports or talking about what are you doing, you know, and I tell them how my career is going or something. I mean, there's not a very deep level of intimacy, certainly around some of the more personal issues of being a man and masculinity. So it's not just being together as men; it's the quality of the time, you know, that you're spending together and the kind of things that you share. That's critical.
And it seemed like a difference also was what structure you're within. I mean, men who are in a boardroom or on a team, they're in a hierarchical situation, and they're not necessarily going to be able to express themselves or do what they would like to do. There's very set structure as to what is correct to do. And
right.
That's right. I think one of the key differences, what you just highlighted, that in a hierarchical structure or a sports team, it is set up deliberately to be competitive. Whereas in something like a men's group or a men's weekend, or even a political group about men's issues, that safety is a very critical issue that we're deliberately trying to break down those walls of competition and saying, no, not here, we're not competing against each other, we're supporting each other.
The problem is that people don't feel safe, that I live on, you know, a street, and until tonight, my neighbors didn't know that I was gay. They may or may not, depending on whether they watch or not. I like to think that my neighbors are community-minded enough to watch this show. And it's not fair. It's really not fair. I'm a really good neighbor. I shovel the sidewalk for my neighbors, and you know, and mow this elderly woman's lawn across the street, and you know, and I feel like not only should I not be scared, but gay people ought to get credit for how good we are to our neighbors, and we also ought to be able to feel like we can stay in Somerville and live our lives in Somerville that we don't always have to be running to Boston, hopping on the T every night to do whatever we want to do, that we should, you know, be able to spend time with our neighbors, go to local places, and do local things.
So that's kind of the big picture. And what about you, Linda? You're born and raised in Somerville,
Yeah,
right?
and I think what, I mean, I think in a lot of ways that Somerville, its reputation, you know, has been a lot of different things over the years. And I think growing up in the city, there's a lot of good things about it anyway. And I think in some ways it's becoming more and more of a place that is open and that is caring, and I think has been in a lot of ways. And I think this is just like another step in that direction. And I think it also, in some ways, points out that it's not like gay people, that Somerville's kind of the cool place to be now because it's, you know, it has like the tea and this and that. That there have been gay people here the whole time. You know, it's that there are gay people in towns and cities everywhere. It's not, you know, we're not all in Cambridge or in like in the South End or just different. It's like that, or in P-town or whatever. That we're everywhere. And I think that, you know, and I guess, yeah, growing up here is that I feel like, you know, I've always been a good neighbor, and I think that you're right, that to say that, you know, we're the people that live next door, and we're your neighbor's kids, and we're your, you know, like all those things, we're a part of the community.
Going to the chapel.